Now back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show, which is presented to you by Power Planter Earth Augers, the official digging tool. To find the right size for your digging project, visit powerplanter.com. Now here are your hosts, Joey and Holly Baird.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. Thank you for tuning in this week. We always appreciate you tuning in. We always try to bring content that is valuable to you that you can apply to your garden right now. Also, a lot of content at our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com. We're happy to have our next guest. He is the host of the YouTube channel, The Gardening Channel with James Prigioni. He took his New Jersey grass backyard on in 2012 and converted it into a food forest in a matter of a few years with passion and knowledge, and now producing hundreds of pounds of produce, as well as documenting this whole journey on his YouTube channel. Now with over 400,000 subscribers and 34 million views. Welcome, the host of the James Prigioni YouTube channel.
What's going on, Joey and Holly? Thanks for having me on.
Well, we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on the program.
Oh, no problem.
So back in 2012, when your backyard was just grass, what was the vision to turn it into a food forest, and how did it come about? Did you expect it to get this massive?
Good question. Thank you. And originally the vision was to just, a little smaller scale than I had, because the dream was to move onto a bigger property in the future. And what I wanted to do was kind of test out the whole idea of a food forest and then see if it was actually scalable, if it was something that one person or a small amount of people could manage on a larger scale. So that's why I went with more of the perennial foundation, figuring if I could scale something like this up, that's what I wanted to do. And some of that came from the inspiration from Joel Salatin, because he was always a big inspiration to me. So I went and visited him and talked to him a little bit. I got to meet him. So that was really a huge thing that changed a lot of my life. So as time's gone on, the vision has changed a little bit. So not originally did I think it was going to be the whole backyard, but now I guess the vision has changed as things have grown.
Well, we've done this program 116 times now, and we've never used the word food forest. So for listeners who are new to that term, what is the difference between a garden and a food forest?
Oh, the difference between a garden and food forest, one of the simple differences would be a food forest is the foundation, and the main focus of it is in perennials, in fruiting perennials. So that's one of the main differences, and it's pretty simple to approach. It's basically just looking at a regular forest and replacing all those same elements or the same plants in those in a forest with fruiting things. So in regular forest, you have the 7 layers. We call them 7 layers, and we replace those 7 layers that you would have in a regular forest with fruiting species. So instead of having a wild bush growing in a forest, we have blueberries growing in a food forest, and then it just goes on with all different layers.
Now, you're in New Jersey. You don't have the greatest soil, so you brought wood chips in to create this food forest. Explain the procedure in growing in wood chips, because people see the Back to Eden method. They say, oh, we'll just throw some plants in some wood chips. That's not how it works in this whole procedure.
No. The wood chips it ties in with the whole idea of the food forest again, because the wood chips are more of a perennial fertilizer, and it works towards building soil in the future. So it's not something you're going to get instant gratification from. So it's one of those things where woody species and woody plants like trees and perennials, they tend to like having a thick woody mulch. That's just how it works. And typically your garden vegetables tend to have like a soil that's higher in biological material, things like compost and stuff. So with us being a foundation in perennials, the Back to Eden method of a thick wood mulch worked perfect with the perennials. So that's kind of how it all came together.
And when we talk about a food forest, for people who go over to the James Prigioni YouTube channel, you're growing, tomatoes near a peach tree or a pear tree. There's not this row of tomatoes, this row of beans. You're incorporating all of this stuff, intertwining almost like, polyculture, but on a much larger scale.
Yep, absolutely. Same thing if you were out walking in a regular forest, you would see if you were, a gap in sunlight. So same thing, my trees are pretty close, but there's gaps. So if I'm walking out there and I see a gap in sunlight, then I go out there and I have tomatoes and I'll transplant a tomato, plug that right into the soil, and then just cover it a little bit up with wood chips. But that's how I do it, just like you would kind of in a natural forest. It has more of a natural feel, and I get to fill the gaps. And a lot of people say, you're going to run out of space for annuals when the fruit trees get big, but that's kind of the idea. I'm working towards having those fruit trees. Those are going to be producing food to me in the future. I call those my food insurance. They're like my food security. And while I'm waiting for those fruit trees to produce, because it's going to take a little bit of time, I'm going to grow some annuals, some tomatoes, some peppers in the light in the space that I have. So I'm just trying to get the most out of space. That's why I like gardening in this small area, because I say small gardeners are the best gardeners, because you got to be creative.
And you talk about the small space. Now, on the YouTube channel, it looks like you could go in there and just spend days and enjoy it, and you never know, when you're going to exit the food forest. It's just this lovely experience that you take the camera in, and it just is magical to a certain level.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was the goal. It was like part of it was to create the idea was to create a living room, but not like a room not like a living room you hang out, but to an actual room that's like living, so you kind of can walk into it and escape as its own kind of oasis. And that's what a food forest sort of is. And it's fun because it's like a little paradise in the backyard in suburbia. So we call our little fruit forest like a little paradise in suburbia. And then it's a paradise for us, but it's also a paradise for all the birds and everything too. So it's funny. The backyard with the chickens and the birds, it looks like a bird sanctuary back there sometimes.
And now the question that many people have, and I have, is what does the neighbors think? Were they curious about this? Was there hesitation? Was there restrictions? Did people try to prevent you from doing this, or what was the story on that?
Well, the funny thing is, the one neighbor I have actually had fruit trees before I did. So he's the one that I've done some like the pawpaw videos that I mentioned. He's the one who has the pawpaws, and he's the one who has one of the old persimmon trees. So one of my neighbors, it lines right up, and his fence is almost connected to mine. So the food forest extends almost to another property. So it's pretty cool with that. The other neighbors around me, there's never been an issue or anything. I've been on this property for a pretty long time. So no one's ever said anything. We're pretty respectful of everybody. We try to keep it as relatively as neat as we can. Nothing is in the backyard that's growing that shouldn't be there. Everything is by design. Everything is there for a purpose and serves a purpose, and it serves a function. So I think that most people recognize that, and plus people like it when you have extra fruit and vegetables to share. So, that's always a nice bargaining chip.
The peace offering.
Exactly.
So now it's not just you working in your food forest. I know you talked about your neighbor in the area, but your dog is there, and your dog enjoys his share. Can you tell us more about your four-legged guarded companion?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, the funny thing is the companion, he's the one who runs the channel and kind of does everything, and then he lets me kind of be the second guy. He's the lead, and people know it. And the thing, people like when I make the videos. Once I make the video, within the first couple comments, there's a timestamp where Tuck comes in. There's like 1 minute and 34 seconds when Tuck shows up. So I like to say he gives me a little while because he knows people are going to timestamp it anyways. But he's a little Yorkshire Terrier. He's been with me since the start, since we planted the first thing. He's always out there. Everyone calls him my shadow because he never leaves my side. So he's always right behind me, and it's funny because I'll be sitting down sometimes working on something inside, and he's the one who wants to, try to get something to get me outside. So he encouraged me to get out there and grow, and maybe more than anybody.
And from what I see, you can't just let him go wander off, because he's going to harvest some things that you may not want him to harvest, and he's going to have his share whether you want him to or not.
Oh, absolutely. That's the funny thing. Some of the fencing is for him as much as it is for other things, not because I'm worried of like him ripping stuff up. I'm worried of him eating everything. If I let him go, he'll eat the tops of the asparagus once they pop up, and he pulls the cucumbers right off the fence. So he doesn't just pull the cucumber; he'll pull the whole plant down with it. And then he's like a little kid sometimes. He'll grab one cucumber and eat a little bit, and then he'll move over to the next one and have a little bit of that one too.
Yeah. Whenever you're designing this, or whenever you're planning it, you continue to tweak this whole food forest. Is there anything that's not in the food forest that you are still trying to incorporate into it, or have you kind of really got it where you want it to be on the perennial side of it?
On the perennial side, I think I like for some of the things how it is, but my first food forest, I made a lot of mistakes and I learned so much from it. The new food forest I'm done is a lot better just because of some of the things I've learned, like perennial side, about getting the right fruit trees the first time, about, putting out the extra money and getting the disease resistant ones. But now I'm blending this new style of that I'm going to be talking about more, this new style of like raised beds within the food forest to get this yield without, messing with any of the roots of the fruit trees and stuff too. So the method of in the food forest, my vision, it's always changing and it's always fluid, and that's why I think gardening is so much fun. And I try to never be a zealot in anything I'm doing. I mean, Joey, when I first started, it was like more of a completely natural farming method, and as time has gone on, I've blended the style a little more because I've just tried to blend what has worked, and I'm having more fun. There's always something every year, a different style of gardening that gets me exciting, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, and I'm just going to continue to, change with the times if that's what it is, as long as I'm enjoying it.
And that's the thing. You said you've learned about planting the right fruit trees the first or the second time. You should have knew that the first time. And it's called, the investment. We always talk about, people complain about the soil, that if you bring soil in, if you build this, it costs money up front. But yes, but the reward, and it's an investment that will pay your dividends over those fruit trees you've got there are there for 20, 30, 40 years that will continue to produce with no effort from you ever again.
Exactly. I was talking to someone about it the other day. I said, with the stock market and everything going down, it was better for me to invest in all the fruit trees and everything in the backyard than it would have been even invest in gold or anything. I've got that stuff there and no one could take it. And then as time's gone on, I heard something that really hit a strong chord in me, and why I invest in the fruit trees and everything in the garden now. They said, sometimes you got to focus on things on how much they are worth, not how much they cost. So sometimes the worth is higher than the cost. So sometimes maybe putting a fruit tree and spending $35 on something costs a lot. But if you can look at the worth throughout its lifetime, it's got a lot more value than it seems.
Now you're in zone 7. Is that correct in New Jersey?
Yes. 7A.
What kind of fruit trees are we talking that you've got there that you found to be successful?
In 7A, for my location, the foundation of the fruit trees that do the best are pears. And one way I found that was I was just driving to work one day when I was working at a restaurant, and there was a pear tree that someone had planted. It was a Bartlett, and they had planted it years ago. It was just in the middle of the street, and it was producing with beautiful fruit on it. And so no one had taken care of it. No one was really managing it, and it was doing excellent. So our fruit trees do the best here, that are pears, and then the peaches we can get, those do pretty well. And then some apples, and then some of the plums are a little harder to get. But it's one of those things where it goes back to, again, getting the disease-resistant varieties, no matter what they are, the first time. Because if you don't get the right tree, it'll make a world of difference for you.
Well, it's definitely very important to know for growers of all areas of the region. Now, how can we find out more about you and your YouTube channel and all of your great information?
You can find me over at YouTube, James Prigioni. You could just probably type that in, or you could just probably type in James Prigioni on Google. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. So YouTube's more my home grounds. That's mainly where I'm hanging out.
And you just type in gardening, you're going to find the James Prigioni channel. You've got millions of views, hundreds of videos of great content that everybody can, even the best gardeners in the world, glean off of other gardeners. And that's what the basis of YouTube for the gardening community is all about, to share information.
Absolutely. I learned some of my best stuff from my fellow YouTubers, and everyone's got something to share, and experience is always good. So some people have been doing something for years while others have been doing something different for years. And a lot of that experience is thing. And knowledge is only, worth it when you actually start applying it. And when people apply it and then they've had experience from it and can share it, I think that's where the true value and worth comes from. And that's why I think all of us love YouTube so much.
Absolutely. Well, and we greatly appreciate you taking time out of your day to not only join Holly and myself, but enlighten and educate all of our listeners from across the country.
Thanks for having me on, Joey. Thanks, Holly.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.